What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the career of Eli Manning and what he meant to me as a New York Giants fan and what I hope he meant to you. I hope New York Giants remember the great times because there were a lot of them. Eli Manning, over the course of his career, finished with a 116 and 116 record. And just looking at the stat sheet, when you look at his record, a lot of people think he was a run-of-the-mill quarterback, mediocre quarterback, 500. But that couldn't be anything further from the truth. Eli Manning meant more to me in terms of the sports world in my life than any athlete of all time. And that's the truth. I think he was an unbelievable role model. But what I love most about Eli Manning was what he had to go through and how he overcame it. He was picked on since he got drafted by the Giants with his face and people comparing him to Peyton Manning in the memes. And he proved the doubters wrong not once, but twice. And it was the method in which he did it. Eli Manning, when he first came into the league, everybody, was got on him for his all shucks attitude. They said he can't make it in New York. We need more fire. And of course, we all remember on draft night when he got drafted by the San Diego Chargers, obviously now the LA Chargers, and he forced his way onto the Giants. He said he wouldn't play there. He didn't want to play there. The reason being his father Archie played years with the New Orleans Saints. And, he knew what it was like to play for a poor organization. He didn't want to put his son in that situation. He saw an opportunity to force his way to the Giants, and that's exactly what happened when the Giants orchestrated the trade to send Phillip Rivers and eventually Sean Merriman to the Chargers for Eli Manning. Now, the trade on paper worked out for both teams. Rivers got the Chargers into contention. They made, several playoff runs, never quite reaching a Super Bowl. And, of course, the New York Giants got two Super Bowl crowns out of the deal and their greatest quarterback in the history of the franchise. And Eli Manning, went through his struggles his rookie year, much like I expect Daniel Jones to do the same, and he learned from it. He led the team to the playoffs in 2005, 2006, and people still doubted him, because there were moments. Obviously, we all remember the great come-from-behind victory against the Eagles in 2005, and that is when I, as a Giants fan, first witnessed the clutch factor, right? The ability to bring a team back down 17 points in the fourth quarter, and he brought them back to win that game in overtime. And that's when I said, that's my quarterback. And I was behind him every step of the way. And he led us through turbulent times. Obviously we got smoked by Carolina in the playoffs early on in his career. John Fox, the ex-coach for the Giants, he knew a lot about our playbook. But by 2007, a lot of people were calling for Eli's job. They thought he was done. The Giants were able to get hot and make the playoffs. They got off to a bad start that year. 0-2. They then would go on to win 10 out of their next 13 games before narrowly losing to the New England Patriots the last game of the season to finish the year at 10-6. And going into that game, a lot of people said, why is Tom Coughlin putting out his starters? The Giants are in the playoffs. They can't move up in the seeding. And the Patriots, we all knew, were going for the undefeated season. And we found out later on exactly why he did it. It gave the team confidence. And more importantly, it gave Eli Manning confidence. And he went on to have nearly a flawless playoff performance. Of course, he went on and he would take on Jeff Garcia and the Tampa Bay Bucks in the first week. They'd go on the road and win that game. Then week 2, he would take on the hated Dallas Cowboys, a team that year which was great and were the favorites to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. He'd go into Dallas and he'd orchestrate an unbelievable drive before halftime. I think there was 50 seconds left on the clock. Was able to drive them down to get them within striking distance, and then they would later go on to upset the Dallas Cowboys on the road. Of course, bring us the memorable moment of Terrell Owens crying with the glasses on and yelling, "That's my quarterback," crying as his Cowboys went down in defeat. And then that would bring us to, of course, Lambeau Field in one of the most memorable games in New York Giants history, as Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin, Plaxico Burress would go on into Lambeau Field and come up with an unbelievable upset. A place where nobody, in the past really went in and won in the playoffs. And the Giants were able to do just that as he took down Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks who ever lived. And, we all remember the game Plaxico Burress had that day against Al Harris. One of the most memorable performances I've ever seen a wide receiver have. And Eli Manning went, he stuck through it with the toughness, with the grit, and he brought us to the Super Bowl. And even then, people doubted him, myself included. I didn't think they were going to win that game. I mean, the Patriots were 18-0. They were the greatest team ever for the first 18 games of a season, that is. And, the Patriots came in as huge favorites, double-digit point favorites going into the game. Giants were a 10-6 football team. Patriots dominated everybody they played that year. But, of course, remember, the Giants played them that last game of the season really tough. And the first drive of that game set the tone. Even though the Giants only came up with 3 points, Eli Manning and the offense chewed up the clock. They pounded the ball down their throats with Brandon Jacobs. They established their identity. And the game would go back and forth, low scoring. Until late in the game, Tom Brady would orchestrate a touchdown drive, and the Giants would fall behind, and they'd be down 4 points, with minutes to play. And Eli Manning would orchestrate one of, if not the greatest drives in the history of football. And when I think about Eli Manning, I think clutch. I think toughness. He has 5 game-winning drives in the playoffs. And the guy's only played in maybe 12 or 13 playoff games. He's third all-time, I believe, in game-winning drives in the playoffs in a limited sample size. He was unbelievable. And then he would orchestrate us on the final drive, of course, with the Tyree catch, which is one of the most memorable plays in the history of football. Eli Manning in the grasp, about to go down. The referee's got the whistle in his mouth. He's about to blow the play dead, and he miraculously escaped the sack and threw the ball deep downfield to Tyree, as Tyree would come up with an unbelievable catch. Tyree would later retire that season, but he will be remembered forever as a New York Giant. And after that play, people forget, they still had to go about another 30 or 40 yards. And then he would throw the ball in the end zone as the Patriots would come out with an all-out blitz. And he dropped the ball right in the bucket to Plaxico Burress. It seemed like it took hours for that ball to fall down into his hands. And the Giants would take a 3-point lead, and they'd go on to win the Super Bowl. Eli Manning was finally champion. He had proved the doubters wrong. He had gone from player that people wanted benched for Jared Lorenzen to a Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP as he legitimized himself as a quarterback. And then he'd go through his struggle. 2008, the Giants would bounce back and have an unbelievable year again until, of course, Burress would shoot himself in the foot, which would start the downturn of the franchise for the next 3 years. 08, 09, 010. And Eli would be doubted again. And then in 2011, we all remember he went on the radio, Michael Kay's show, and he asked him if he thought he was an elite quarterback, and Eli immediately said yes, which spawned the phrase, you can't spell elite without Eli. And that year, Eli Manning in 2011 had one of the greatest years I've ever seen a quarterback have. Ever. I don't care what the stats say. He threw for almost 5,000 yards, but the come from behind victories. The Giants had 9 victories that year. They narrowly snuck into the playoffs. And Eli Manning was the driving force. He kept that team afloat. They had no running game the entire year. The defense was horrible the whole year due to injuries. They got hot, during the stretch run and into the playoffs. But Eli Manning kept that team afloat. And in my opinion, he should have won the MVP that year. Unbelievable performance after unbelievable performance. And like I said, he led them to the playoffs, 2011, as they had to win their last 2 games to get in. We, of course, remember the 99-yard touchdown catch by Victor Cruz. They would face the Atlanta Falcons in the first round. They destroy them 24-2. They then would go on and face the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field yet again. Deja vu. And they would destroy them in a game in which they should have won by more than what they did. We remember the Hail Mary throw before the half to Hakeem Nicks. And Eli Manning was great once again. And then he would go on to play what I felt was his most memorable game in New York Giants history, as far as I'm concerned. The toughness he displayed in that NFC Championship game against that ferocious San Francisco 49er defense led by Patrick Willis. And not to throw a turnover. He got hit time and time and time again. Here he is displayed in that picture with his helmet nearly falling off his face. He's got grass all over his body. You go back and look at that game, I don't know how he didn't have every rib broken in his body. But he stood in the pocket tall, and he made throw after throw after throw. And he showed you what he was. He showed you his toughness. He showed you what it was like to be a New York Giant, to put the team on his back. And he led the New York Giants to the Super Bowl, to yet again take on Tom Brady. And yet again, the game would come down to the final drive. The Giants down 3. Had their own 20. First play of the drive, he throws the ball up into double coverage down the sideline to Mario Manningham. 35, 40 yards down the field, he drops it right where it needs to be. A perfect throw. Maybe the greatest throw in the history of the league. when you factor in the circumstance. And Manningham catches it on the sideline as he had no choice to, as it was right in his hands. Eli delivered it where it needed to be as he displayed that clutchness yet again. And he would lead him down the field to defeat Tom Brady for a second time. And don't forget that, Patriots fans. If it wasn't for Eli Manning, you guys would have 2 more Super Bowls. Orchestrating 2 of the greatest drives in Super Bowl history and taking home his second Super Bowl MVP, one of only 5 quarterbacks to ever accomplish that. So when people tell you that Eli Manning is a 500 quarterback, laugh at them and tell them, did Dan Marino do that? Did your quarterback do that? No. No quarterback's done what Eli Manning's done. Been doubted time and time again. To be able to knock down that undefeated Patriots team and give us all the memories that he did and be the man that he was. This man, of course, won the Walter Payton Award for being the most charitable athlete. He was a finalist several other times. And Eli Manning represents what it is to be a New York Giant. And I'm proud that I got to cheer for this guy for his entire career. I really am. I'm proud that he was a New York Giant. I'm proud that he forced his way here, that he wanted to be here. And I'm going to root for him every step of the way for the rest of his career, whether it be on the bench, whether it be that he gets traded somewhere else, whether it be that he's a free agent next year and he goes somewhere else, because he deserves it. And I'm glad the infighting is done. And I'm glad we can move on and support who we hope is our next Eli Manning in Daniel Jones. But Eli, you'll never be forgotten. You'll always be remembered. And I love you. I love what you brought to my life. Some of the most happiest days as a sports fan are because of you and your teammates. So thank you. And as always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.